Hello and welcome to Matt's Mosh Pit, and tonight I'm going to be giving you my review of Spiritbox's Tsunami C North American Tour. But before I get started, I just want to say thank you so much for all the love and support you've shown me and my channel so far. It truly means a lot, and I could not do this without you. As mentioned, I recently went to Spiritbox's Tsunami C North American Tour, and in my area it took place at the MGM Grand National Harbor Casino, which is really kind of interesting because I've definitely seen shows there before, but they're normally like non-metal shows. I did see Judas Priest there, which was really cool, but at the time I was even shocked that Judas Priest would be at the casino, for lack of better terms, because normally casinos have more, pop oriented or bands that are, kind of older and whatnot. Not that, not metal. I just don't typically see metal there. So I was really shocked when I saw that Spiritbox was actually going to be playing at the MGM. But, I'll be honest with you, it's actually kind of funny. While we were there, I saw an advertisement for another tour that's coming to the MGM, and it's Meshuggah with Cannibal Corpse and Carcass. So, hey, maybe the casinos just need that little pep of metal. But anyway, back to the story. So the MGM Casino, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it holds 3,000 people seated and 4,000 people in a general admission situation. And I'll be honest with you, every show that I've been there had always been seated. I didn't even know they could kind of remove all the seats. So they did, and this was definitely a general admission show, which absolutely works for me because if anybody's actually been to a show with me, I like to kind of burrow up to the side stage. You just get closer. You don't have to deal with the people crowd surfing, kicking you in the head and all that kind of stuff. Also, I'm very tall, and so a lot of times when it comes to crowd surfing, people tend to ask me to lift them up so they can start crowd surfing, all that good stuff. I don't really want to be involved in any of that. So when you have a general admission situation, I'm always a little bit off to the side so I don't have to deal with anything. Quite frankly, I think that might just be a little tip for me, folks. If you're not familiar with it, just go to the side and you can really get a good upfront, view without getting kicked in the head. Outside of playing a casino, another thing that was kind of interesting about this tour was the fact that the tour originally had 4 bands, 3 openers, as well as Spiritbox. And right before the tour was to start, one of the bands broke up. You guys can research that. It's a whole big debacle. I'll end up talking about it for hours. So I'm just going to save you the trouble. Just go ahead and you can do the research on your own and you'll find out what a debacle it was. But anyway, there were only 2 opening bands. The first band was a band from Portland, Oregon called Dying Wish, and the second band was a band from UK called Loathe. And the interesting thing was, with a 4-band set, I understand why the start time was essentially listed as 6:30, but with a band missing, I feel like they should have changed the time to 7:30 or something along those lines. So, people still showed up at 6:30. The opening band didn't go on until about 7, which was fine. It actually worked out for me because I got stuck in traffic, because in this area, traffic is awful. So I actually just kind of assumed that I was going to be missing the opening band. And because I think the original opening band broke up, it kind of left a little bit of wiggle room, which on one end was really good, but on the other end, it left some really, really weird pauses as far as the breaks, the in between the bands. I feel like normally you're expecting maybe a 15, maybe 20-minute intermission in between bands. And in this particular show, it seemed as if the intermissions were almost double, if not, it just seemed like there was just a lot of waiting around. And you could even see that on the stage crew was already done, very early. The first 2 acts didn't really have much as far as stuff goes. So it seemed as if the roadies were pretty much done like really, really quick, which basically left a lot of people just waiting around and waiting around and waiting around till eventually, the bands came out. So that was a little bit of a turnoff. And I will say in between Loathe and Spiritbox, I think that might have been the longest wait. And that was definitely over 30 minutes. I would say it was closer to like 35, if not 40. And so that was just like a really, really long time to wait. To put a silver lining on the whole time situation, I was very concerned about being late because of the traffic that I mentioned earlier. And when we got there, the merch lines weren't really that big at all. And I think it's because people, had plenty of time to already, get their merch before the bands came out. So that was quite pleasant. So here's a little taste of what the merch looked like. The merch stand was centrally located and featured merch from all of the bands. Average t-shirts were about $40, and I actually did like a lot of the designs. Long sleeve shirts were like $50, and sweatshirts were $90, which, hey, that's out of my price range, but somebody's going to buy them. The first band up for the night was from Portland, Oregon, called Dying Wish. And they were metalcore, but they were definitely on the heavier side. They had these just big chugging riffs, and they had a way of really just getting the crowd pumped up, which is what you want out of an opening band. And they were just brutally heavy. They were definitely heavier than I expected, quite frankly. But the lead singer was a female lead singer, and she did a little bit of clean singing, but I'd say more heavy, guttural screams than clean singing. So it was definitely on the heavier side. So it depends on the metalcore spectrum where you lie, whether you like more cleans than harsh or vice versa. They're definitely more on the harsh side than the clean side. I will say that they did a great job. They got the crowd pumped up. There was, moshing and circle pits and all that kind of good stuff. The lead singer's vocals weren't necessarily for me, but the people that I was with really thoroughly enjoyed them. So it's just one of those, vocal preferences or whatnot. But anyway, I give them credit because, they just went in and owned it and got the crowd really pumped up, which is everything you'd want out of an opening band. Here's a little taste. Next up was Loathe. They're from the UK. Once again, very much like Dying Wish, I had never heard them, seen them before, so I really didn't know what to expect. But all I know is I was surrounded by a ton of Loathe fans. I saw a ton of Loathe shirts. I saw people that, I feel like they were there specifically to see Loathe. When Loathe came out, they got a reaction almost like as if they were the headliners. So, good on them. Like I said, I didn't really know what I was getting into. And they definitely came off heavy. The first song was, you get the harsh gutturals and all that kind of good stuff. But then they also had this very this ambient, they have some elements of shoegaze, and I guess it's considered melodic metalcore. While they had a huge audience participation, and once again, I feel like a good portion of the audience was there almost just for them, it didn't quite work for me. It just seemed in a weird way, I guess when it comes to my version of metalcore, I want to be, I like the cleans and I like the, harsh vocals, but in a weird sort of way, they have to kind of work together and blend together as if they're the same genre. Where in a weird sort of way, they were mixing like harsh gutturals with like really like ambient music and, almost in a weird sort of way, like jazzy kind. It was very, for me, it just seemed like they were too far apart. And hey, I'm just one person, and clearly the rest of the crowd highly disagrees with me, I'm assuming, based on the reaction and whatnot. But for me, it wasn't exactly, it, I don't know. It just didn't quite work. I will say the band was uber talented. The lead singer's vocals were great. Once again, it's really just a matter of the mixing the styles and being able to do it right for my ears. And I will say it just didn't quite work, but not for lack of the band. It has nothing to do with the band's performance or anything like that, because if you could, we were already standing, and if you could give a standing ovation, they would have absolutely gotten it based on the reaction of the crowd. So once again, I think I was just on my own island there, but hey, it is what it is. And as I always say, the heart wants what the heart wants. Up next was Spiritbox. And before I get into the actual review of Spiritbox, I should kind of give you a little bit of an insight as far as where my mindset was, or how I viewed Spiritbox prior. And I should say that I was very up in the air on Spiritbox, because I've heard the songs that had videos and I've done a couple reactions to them, but I've never really done like a real deep dive into Spiritbox. And so I really got the tickets just because I've seen a lot of other reviews of them, whether it be, Spiritbox at a festival where somebody just goes, there's this new band or some band that I've heard called Spiritbox. They were actually really good. That kind of a situation. So I really just wanted to see if I was missing anything. And so I will say this, when Spiritbox came out, I feel like right away on song number 1, I realized that all these people that have been saying how great they are live and whatnot, they were 100% correct. The band just looked like they had been, they'd been headlining for years. They just kind of owned the stage. More importantly, Courtney has this vibe, and I will say this: I've seen a bunch of interviews with Courtney, and for me, she always kind of comes off a little bit more reserved and almost a little bit standoffish, a little bit. So I didn't quite get it, and I didn't quite get the hype, all that kind of good stuff. I do love what she did at the Grammys with Poppy, but outside of that, like when I've seen interviews, I kind of get this like vibe of a little bit reserved, a little bit standoffish. And I think that a lot of that really just comes from being, relatively new. But when she hit the stage, she immediately has that it factor. And the only thing I can kind of compare it to is, people like Melissa Bonney from Ad Infinitum, to Elisa from Arch Enemy. There's people that when they just hit the stage, it's almost like all eyes are on them and they just own it. I could not stop watching Courtney. I think she just had this amazing presence. She just has like such a killer vibe up there on stage, and vocally she sounded amazing. Her gutturals as well as her clean singing, it sounded, once again, it was just amazing. And so they just played, and like I said, I didn't know most of the set. I think I knew maybe 3 or 4 songs, and it didn't really even matter. Like, I loved every bit of it. I think they just had, their set was just extremely fluid. There was never a moment where I felt like, okay, this has gone on a little bit longer, that kind of thing. Sometimes no matter who it is, if there's like a lull period, you're kind of like, okay, now's the time to go get a drink or something like that. I never felt that once during this show. I was really glued to the band from start to finish. And likewise, the crowd was 100% into it. And it was just an overall really, really good vibe. And it absolutely left me wanting more. Like when they ended, I was pretty much sad. Like, really? Can't they do any more? You know, that kind of thing. Here's a little taste of Spiritbox's performance. I will say this, folks. If you like metalcore and that's like a genre that you're really, really into, you should absolutely check out this specific tour. If it comes to your area, absolutely check them out. I can 100% vouch for Spiritbox. If Spiritbox comes to your town, whether it's on this tour or another tour, you should definitely check them out. They're definitely worth it. And with that being said, you know, folks, if you like this video and like these reviews, please hit the like button. If you have not already hit the subscribe button, please hit the subscribe button. It truly means a lot and will only further this channel. More importantly, please leave comments. Let me know, did you see this tour as well? Maybe you went to the same show I went to. You know, what are your thoughts? Or have you seen Spiritbox in the past? Did you have a good experience, bad experience, all that good stuff? You know, please absolutely let me know in the comments. And with that being said, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.